This way, Minnow told her in a low voice. Tyra followed her contact through the shadowed alleys of Elanel. She shivered as another gust of wind found its way through the narrow passage between the buildings, sending loose refuse swirling along the perpetually damp roads. Stepping around a puddle that was probably not all water, she sighed behind her mask. Was there some unspoken rule that demanded assassins end up in places like this? So nothing worked? Tyra asked. Doesn't seem like it, Minnow answered. At first, we thought it'd be easy. She's been going from tavern to tavern, eating from every one of them while she does her thing. But our agents have used enough poison to kill half the city. What have they tried so far? Tyra nodded as the agent listed off 24 types of poison and the doses used. They were all lethal in different ways, derived from a variety of plant, animal and mineral sources. Their agents had been thorough in their attempts at killing off their target through her food, so they would have to take a different approach. They didn't notice anything at all? Nothing, Minnow shook her head. All may as well have been seasoning. Bards weren't exactly known for having strong constitutions. That being said, the adventurers in every city that their target passed through all agreed that she was in the realm of heroes. She may have been strong enough to just shrug everything off. If she wore poison-resistance items, it would almost certainly be a futile effort. The Imperial Army actually went and pulled off their stunt with that Dragon Lord, Tyra said. Where was she during all this? Guy coming in from Norford said that she's been doing 2 or 3 adventurer jobs a night, so where she's been is hard to track. That beastman merchant she's been traveling with sent green dragon bodies to be taken apart in Norford while all that was going on, though. So she had at least participated in the Empire's operation in some way. The extent was unknown, but people who fought green dragons always prepared poison-resistance items and antidotes. They should have foreseen that their poisoning attempts wouldn't work, but it was still probably worth trying on the off chance she switched out of her equipment. It wasn't unreasonable for a target that could single-handedly wipe out armies. Have them give up on that, Tyra said. We'll figure out something else. Find any weaknesses we can use? No direct weaknesses. She's a tough nut to crack. We don't even know when she sleeps. No one can sense how strong she is, but she comes back with all sorts of work done. Been doing it all solo, too. The hell? Tyra leaned back. A solo bard? Are you sure she doesn't have her party hidden away somewhere? If she's been traveling with beastman merchants, then maybe she also has a demi-human adventurer team that she thinks is better off out of sight around here. There's no sign of that, Minnow replied. We've had a tail on her since East Estate. There's the beastman merchant and his workers plus some army officer. She came in with them from Ingelfort and nothing's changed about him. By the looks of it, the officer's there for the merchant. They made their way down through the city before stopping 3 levels above the city's harbor. Bawdy music drifted through the air and the odors of cheap food, liquor and the rancid concoction that collected on seedy tavern floors wafted up at them. Minnow hopped down and Tyra waited as her agent went to confirm their target. Did all of the gathered information add up? A human bard from the Sorceress Kingdom escorting a demi-human merchant from the same nation. The Empire officially allowed demi-humans passage for travel and trade, but many difficulties awaited those that came to work and do business. It made sense that there would be an officer attached to ensure that nothing happened to citizens of their suzerain. Everything seemed perfectly plausible aside from the bard being so powerful. Merchant escorts in the Empire were generally platinum rank and the Imperial Army dealt with weaker threats. Major demi-human raids and powerful monsters attacking highway traffic were nearly unheard of. Their target's activity and the blister suggested that she had been purposely positioned in an innocuous manner. At least as innocuous as one could make an adamantite rank adventurer. Yet the Dragon Lord was gone and the bard remained. What other purpose was she serving? If they could figure that part out, they might be able to find a better way to expose her to a hit. Minnow reappeared, nodding in confirmation as she walked back up the street towards Tyra. She's still there, the agent said. A lot of eyes on her, though. Eyes, say, do you know her preferences? She's as flirty as you might expect a bard to be, but it doesn't seem like she's taken a fancy to anyone. So no one's tried that approach? Tyra asked. What about her accommodations? Who does she share a room with? The agent fell silent for several moments, brow furrowing in thought. She stays with the merchant. The merchant, as in the beast man? Yeah, Minnow mirrored Tyra's expression. Pretty sure he calls her wife, as well. What? Just to be certain, Tyra crossed her arms. This bard is a human, right? Aha. She's not super hairy or anything like that? Nope. She's pretty much a walking fantasy. For humans. Tyra rubbed her chin with a finger. There were plenty of weird fetishes out there, so it might be true. Many demi-humans valued strength above all else, so she could see it being a thing on the beastman's end. Humans, however, usually stuck to humans or at least something close in appearance, like elves. Humans doing nasty things with demi-humans was the stuff of tales like the Goblin King and the Human Princess. Okay, so she shares a room with this beastman. All of them, actually. What? She's with the beastman and all of his apprentices. Crazy stuff. No, Tyra held out a hand. That can't be right. I don't want it to be right. Who else is in there with them? The army officer and the 3 women working at the merchant's stand. It's a 5-on-5. What twisted pit of degeneracy was this? The Sorcerer's Kingdom was supposedly a place where many races coexisted, but it never crossed her mind that they coexisted like that. So there aren't any human men in that mess? Nope. The caravan staff stay in their own rooms. With the target's unknown strength, Tyra thought that seduction might have worked best. No matter how powerful they were, humans depended on equipment to some extent. Even monks and magic casters were far weaker without their stuff. As a bard, their target did have spell songs, but those took time to perform and were easily interrupted. Against an assassin with a carefully prepared weapon, they would be at a deadly disadvantage. You gonna try joining them? Tyra's eyelid twitched. Let's, see what else we can do first. They never trained us for demi-human orgies. What sort of questions has she been asking? Basic ones, Minnow replied. If you sound like you might be familiar with it, she'll ask for details. The agent's voice trailed off. What? Tyra asked. She's a damn powerful bard, so it's hard to fish anything out of her, Minnow said. Her abilities are too strong for our agents to resist. She asks, they answer. Pretty sure she could convince people that the sea is red and the clouds are green if she wanted. Tyra nodded. That was a common issue when it came to dealing with vocations that had high persuasive ability. When such individuals grew in strength, charisma became supernatural in quality, producing all sorts of strange effects. However, it was not something commonly encountered. At most, it manifested as natural charm, diplomatic skill, mundane leadership, bargaining ability, or the talent to entertain others. Anything more aggressive was usually viewed in the same light as magical compulsion, which was a taboo nearly everywhere. Unlike imperial citizens, their target was not bound by the laws of the empire and thus would have no qualms wielding her powers against them. In fact, mind control spells were employed by the authorities in the Sorcerer's Kingdom. Openly displaying antagonism was not an option for the weaker agents in Ijarnir's support network, and the other assassins were probably no match if she was truly a one-person adamantite team. Let's take a look, I guess. She really didn't want to get involved in some crazy demi-human orgy. In theory, assassins didn't care what methods were used to dispatch their targets as long as they fell within the bounds that their contract and organizational rules laid out for them. But everyone had methods that they would rather not resort to if possible. They dropped down to the tavern's level and entered the building. The bowels of Elanel were such that no one would think much of anyone skulking around. Everyone kept to their own business. There were no would-be heroes or upstanding citizens here. Tyra wrinkled her nose at the haze of pipe smoke that greeted them inside. It took all of 1 second to locate their target. They took a table at the opposite corner of the room and she concealed her presence before giving the woman a good look. While the aged man sitting across from the bard openly displayed his lustful appreciation for her, several alarming things commanded Tyra's attention. Foremost was the fact that their target was using some item or skill to prevent attempts at directly gathering information. Tyra could sense no strength from her at all. Since the bard was just sitting there chatting, there was no way to figure out her strength through other indicators like movements, casual actions or skill use. Their target wore 2 rings, a necklace, a set of braces and a flamboyant outfit that hugged her body in a way that enticed the eyes of those around her. A silvery chain adorned her waist, but there were no visible weapons. Normally, adventurer bards wore chainmail armor, wielded at least a rapier and a dirk, and carried an instrument of some sort. There was little chance that what Tyra noted weren't all magic items. Since bards, like many vocations with thief aspects, could bypass magic item restrictions with their skills, many were armed with all manner of them to supplement their skill sets. Tyra did not see any scroll cases, holstered wands, bandoliers of alchemical vials or anything else. There were a number of pouches at her waist, however, so it was unlikely that she had no tricks to use. Tyra's hand made a series of movements as she leaned forward against their table. What kind of bard is she? There's no gear to tell. Claims to be a dancer. A human dancer as an adventurer? That made zero sense. Demi-human races with natural weapons and armor could manage combat as dancers, but human ones wouldn't survive. Most were civilian performers. Had she started out training as a monk and then become a dancer? Being able to kill her while she was naked was less likely if so. This is going to be tough. We're gonna have to isolate the target somehow and gang up on her. You don't think you can take this bard out on your own? She might look the way she does, but she's clearly guarded. Her items are mostly out of sight and we can't plan for every possible contingency. We have to hit her hard and fast so she can't use any magic items. The Sorceress Kingdom is supposed to be magically advanced. If she has a teleportation item or some other thing that allows her to escape, that's a fail for us. Right, I'll get the others then. Where do we meet? Outside the Eastern Naval Station. That far? That'll make things more convenient for us, but how will you get her there? I'll figure that part out. Get going. Minnow rose from her seat, giving Tyra one last look before leaving the tavern. It would take about a week for word to reach Ijania's mountain base. Since the target was traveling with a merchant caravan, they would likely have ample time to prepare. Tyra remained at the table to surreptitiously observe the target. As night fell and the tavern slowly emptied, the old dock worker walked away with a smile. She waited until it looked like the bard was about to leave before approaching her. "This seat taken?" Tyra asked as she walked up to her table. "No, I was on my way out." Tyra blinked. Her intent should have been clear enough, especially with so many empty tables around them. "What I meant to say was that I'd like to speak with you." It certainly didn't sound that way. The bard frowned prettily. "What is it that you wish to speak about?" Either this bard was unbelievably naive or an airhead. Or it could all be an act. Tyra couldn't tell. There were plenty of powerful idiots in the world, so it would be a mistake to assume competence despite apparent ability. Tyra smiled as she took the seat opposite her. "You were talking with the old man for a long time," Tyra said. "The only thing that old men have are old stories, so you must be doing some research, maybe for a performance? I'm Tia, by the way." Tyra extended her hand with a warm smile. The bard stared at it for a moment before looking her in the eye. "Tia?" she asked, "are you a spy?" "I used to do that kind of work all the time," Tyra answered. "I'm pretty expensive these days, so not so much anymore." "Whoa." Tyra silently activated a ninja technique, purging herself of the bard's influence. She used another to fortify her mind. "Are you one as well?" "Lame." She had been caught off guard and something lame came out. This bard was ridiculous. She could probably succeed even when she failed. "I seem to perform many tasks that others might consider spy-like," the bard admitted, "so I do wonder about that sometimes." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Tia. I'm Shiva." Shiva took Tyra's hand in hers, giving it a gentle shake. "So, Miss Tia, what was it that you wanted to speak to me about?" "Eh? We're just going with that?" Tyra glanced at their surroundings. No, it was perfectly normal. Whether one was a thief, a murderer, a spy or some other shady vocation, no one cared here. "Ah, I thought I might have a lead for you. I'm not sure about it, though. I wouldn't want to waste your time." She rested her wrist on the tabletop, tapping her fingers upon it lightly. Shiva stayed still until she seemed to recall something. A stack of silver trade coins appeared between them, then she held up a gold coin between them. "Are you familiar with this?" the bard asked. Tyra reached out to take the coin, but Shiva wouldn't let go of it. It took several good tugs to get it out of her fingers. How strong was this damn bard? Why was she so reluctant to let her see the thing that she was trying to show her? She examined the coin, slowly turning it this way and that. It was indeed one of the artifacts that they kept an eye out for. Tyra's frown deepened the longer she looked at it. Finally, she set it down with a shudder, leaning forward with a hushed voice. "You sure you should be holding on to this? Why do you ask?" I think it's cursed," Tyra said. "I've seen people flashing these things around before. They disappear after that." Though it might seem that she was trying to deter the bard, adventurers tended to expect challenges to stand in the way of their rewards. Presenting the possibility of some intangible danger would take advantage of that behavior, making it seem like there was indeed something worth their time and effort. Shiva picked up the coin, eyeing it closely. Then she sniffed it. "It doesn't seem cursed. Is that something people can smell? Then, if you're not worried about that, you should head east to Far Sound." "What will I find there?" Shiva asked. "It's a lonely port that hasn't changed much from the old days," Tyra answered. "I think you'll have better luck there than anywhere else." "Is that so?" The bard visibly brightened. "Then I suppose I'll look into it. Thank you for sharing this information with me, Miss Tia." "You're a long way from home, officer." A clerk with salt and pepper hair sent a pointed look at Nemel's insignia, the outdated badge of the long-dissolved 8th Legion. She offered the man a tired smile from across the office counter. "I think I've been to half of the Empire in the last few weeks," she said. "Being a loose end means they can send us to do anything they want, I guess. I really like your garrison, though. It seems nice and quiet." "Nice and forgotten, more like," the officer said. "Far Sound's where they send people if they want to keep them away from anything worth anything. You get to live out the rest of your career nice and quiet. Your rank coming in is your rank for life." "It's a naval station, isn't it?" Nemel frowned. "Plus there should be a lot to do out here on the border." "That's what they all think," the man snorted through his bristly mustache, "but nothing happens. We get local traffic using the harbor in the summer, but ships going to and from the city-state alliance don't stop here. Everything past this point is mountain. There's no expansion and no opportunity, just a place with a bunch of bitter, washed-up would-have-beens who crossed the wrong people." Things probably weren't as bleak as the officer made them out to be, but she knew his type after being to so many places. Every station had a few people who were content to sit behind a desk, collect their pay, and make a pastime out of complaining to anyone who would listen to them. She didn't enjoy the feeling of being dragged down by their morose outlook. Nemel reached into her satchel to place a large envelope on the table. "Please send this out with the next courier," she said, then furrowed her brow. "There is a courier serving here, right?" "Mail goes out with the patrols." The officer slid the envelope towards himself. "Reaches Elanal, eventually. You in some sort of hurry?" "No, that's just fine. Thank you very much." She dipped her head politely before turning to leave the garrison office. A gust of wind met her as she stepped onto the street, tossing locks of pale blonde hair across her face. Nemel brushed them aside as she took inventory of the remote port. Far Sound was something like a small town, but unlike the other frontier towns of the Empire, it seemed about as forgotten as the officer suggested. Its main street of barely maintained cobblestone ran along the waterfront, sparsely lit by magical torches. The harbor could service 4 cargo ships at most, and 2 of its berths were occupied by military cogs that looked as old as the settlement's buildings. "This place doesn't even have an aviary." A frontier garrison without an aviary either meant that the Imperial Army didn't deem it a security risk, or the place wasn't economically significant enough to merit the presence of the Imperial Air Service. It was an old, sleepy town at the end of an inlet sheltered by high cliffs, but Nemel felt that places like this still held a special charm that couldn't be found anywhere else. Though they had parted ways with the rest of the caravan that they had built up over the weeks, the arrival of Zusharu's wagons, the other merchants opted to head south from Elanal rather than follow them to the remote settlement, still brought out what the area had to offer. While Far Sound might have been a dead end for a military career, the civilian sectors had plenty of life to them. In addition to the local agriculture, there was lumber, limited mining, and plenty of products derived from the nearby wilderness. It was ultimately still a town, however, so staying for more than a day or two would have trading opportunities running dry. Since things weren't overly busy, Nemel took the opportunity to update her latest batch of reports and send them to General Ray. They weren't much, but she had eventually decided to provide him with some sense of her doing what she had been sent for. Copies of Nemel's customs reports, intelligence on the other faction's agents, payments rendered for her services, and other odds and ends were included. Knowing how most Imperial subjects acted, Her regular reports would be seen as a giant puzzle to piece together and used to provide insight into whatever the general had conjured up in his head. She didn't report anything that seemed important to Dame Verilyn and Lady Zaradnik, of course. This included how the Baroness had scooped up all of the agents in Norford and sent them back to their houses to prepare for negotiations in the Sorceress Kingdom. One could only wonder what General Ray would think about an empire's worth of factional agents inexplicably vanishing in a day. Nemel rearranged her mantle and drew its hood over her head as another gust of wind swept over the street. She picked up her pace, making her way past the town's small temple as she headed to the Single Merchant Inn. A guilty glance was cast towards the temple. When was the last time she had attended a service or offered alms? For that matter, did the Sorceress Kingdom even have temples? If so, did demi-humans attend temple services? The undead? Would it even be a temple at that point? Her free time over the past few weeks had been filled with endless reading and planning and discussion as they tried to figure out how Dame Verilyn's land could be developed and its people managed. Everyone enjoyed that part, at least. The path that lay ahead of them was like an exciting adventure for nobles. For some strange reason, they assumed that the temples would be there too. If they weren't, they would readily send people, except the faith of the four openly opposed the undead. How would they provide for the needs of the people that the temples usually covered? Upon entering the inn, she glanced around the tavern for familiar faces. Finding none of the caravan members, she went up to their humble suite, which was similarly empty. Was everyone still at the stand? No, it was nearly midnight. Dame Verilyn had already gone off to the nearest adventurer guild to find some jobs to do, but everyone else should have been finding down for bed or already sound asleep. She went to the window and pulled aside the curtains. The streets were empty and there didn't appear to be any events that would have drawn them outside. Puzzled, she cast a message spell. Fendro? Nemel. Thank the gods. Where are you? In a bag. Huh? In a bag. It's cramped and I keep bouncing around so I can't cast anything. Some people showed up while you were away, stuffed me in a bag and carried me off. Nemel closed the curtains and backed away from the window, peering cautiously about the room. There was no sign of any sort of struggle. Was there someone else waiting to get her too? She cautiously bent forward to look under the beds, but there wasn't anyone lurking below. Hey, are you alright? What about everyone else? I'm okay. This bag is itchy though. I think they tore my skirt, too. I'm being taken somewhere but I can't see anything. Did they say anything before they took you away? Nothing at all. These men in black outfits with black hoods and black masks showed up and the next thing I knew I was in a bag. They literally came out of nowhere. Why would they just take you away without saying anything? No one's been doing anything strange, have they? Not that I know of. The only one who might have people after her would be Ida, but that's because of her parents' thing. Oh gods, do you think we've been taken away by Slavers? Karnassus is on the other side of the wilderness. Did that sort of thing happen? It would take normal people over a month to trudge through the mountainous wilderness between the Empire and the City-State Alliance. Nemel hadn't heard of anything like this happening, or maybe no one knew that it happened, considering how their entire group had vanished without a trace. I need to contact Dame Verilyn. Are you still wearing the same thing from the stand? Yes, and it's cold. And bumpy. I think I'm going to be sick. Nemel ended the message spell, pacing around the room in a panic until she finally sat down at the sweet single dining table. There, she found a neatly folded sheet of paper that she had assumed was someone's loose paperwork. She stared at it for several moments before carefully picking it up. Another piece of paper fell out. If you want to see your husband ever again, come to the place marked on the map. Alone. They were after Dame Verilyn? What was going on? A crude map was drawn on the larger sheet of paper, indicating a location over 50 kilometers southeast of Farsound. Did they account for the time Dame Verilyn would be away doing adventurer commissions? It was well beyond the border of the Empire, so maybe there was some sort of carefully prepared trap or area that the kidnappers controlled there. They would need all the advantages they could get if they planned on fighting an adamantite adventurer, or at least they probably thought she was just an adamantite adventurer. How would Dame Verilyn take the news? Despite the legends that described a dragon's poor temperament and calamitous wrath, Nemel had never seen her liege roused to anger. If anything, she was generally nice and calm and Nemel never felt that she was ever in mortal danger around her. Taking a deep breath, she cast another message spell. Dame Verilyn. Hi. Hi. Who came up with this absurd spell? Do you understand how awful it is to have someone suddenly talk in your head like that? Sorry. No, wait, this is awful, Dame Verilyn. Someone stole Zusharu. No one owns Zusharu. How can he be stolen? They took everyone. Fendros and the others too. What? They stole my minions? They left a note and a map to them. Where are you? I was about to murder this rock, but now I am on my way back to Farsound. I'll be there in less than an hour. Where did the map say they would be? Southeast of the town. Outside of the Empire, up in the mountains somewhere. Oh, good. That means I can do anything I want to them. The message ended, leaving Nemel divided over Dame Verilyn's parting words. She sat staring at the note, troubled by what had happened and what the result might be. Kidnapping innocent people was despicable, but Dame Verilyn also casually talked about how she would kill people for messing with her minions. To be certain, if they were after Dame Verilyn's life, it was fine for her to defend herself. Carrying out a sentence to punish people for the harm they brought upon others was also just. But in a lawless land, who decided what was just and fair? What measures were employed? Where were the lines between justice, vengeance, and cruel indulgence? Aside from the border that it had with the Sorceress Kingdom, the frontiers of the Baharuth Empire were at the edge of a vast, unclaimed wilderness. If she understood it correctly, most of the world was like that. Nations and their laws only existed as far as each nation could project de facto power. Everything else was an expanse of city-states, tribal territories, or terrain filled with monsters and unlivable hazards. If considered along those lines, overarching rule of law was a precious thing that was afforded to the lucky few who lived in places that had the will and power to uphold it. Rule of the strong was the order of the day everywhere else. Still, it shouldn't be a line on a map or the power to do whatever one wanted that determined what they did. Nemel's father always said that the spirit of a nation dwelled not in its lands and buildings, but the hearts of its people. It was an idea that had been passed down through House Gran from some unknown time beyond anyone's memory. No matter where one was, their words and actions could bring honor or disgrace to the place that they called home. The character of a nation ultimately dictated its policies and the effect that it had on the world. Over the past few weeks, what Dame Verilyn had brought to light about the Empire had Nemel decided that it was not a place she could truly be proud of. Her interactions with Lady Zaradnik, however, offered a glimmer of hope that the Sorceress Kingdom could be. While she probably couldn't directly compel Dame Verilyn to do anything, hopefully her work would help nudge the Frost Dragon in a good direction. The wait for her liege seemed to stretch on far longer than the time she had estimated for her arrival. After checking to see who had not been taken away, Nemel contacted each of the abducted members of their party, trying to reassure them that everything would be all right. So far, nothing else had happened to them, but anxiety plagued her nonetheless. When Dame Verilyn finally swept into the room, she went straight to the map on the table and picked it up. A second later, she looked over at Nemel. "Let's go," her liege said. "Do you know where we're going?" Nemel asked. "No," Dame Verilyn answered, "but I will." "Did the others say anything about how they were stolen?" "Fendros said something about them coming out of nowhere." "Good," Dame Verilyn smiled. Nemel frowned at her smile. "Good?" "Yes, good," Dame Verilyn said. "It means that our culprits are rogues or something along those lines." "How can you tell?" "You can tell stealthy types apart by the evidence that they leave behind," Dame Verilyn told her. "They've left their scent, and the other traces that they created are also plain to see. Rogues, bards and monks have incomplete concealment. They move unseen, dampen the sounds that they make, and employ misdirection and disguises. They do not have special abilities to mask scents, neither do they have trackless steps like hunter types." There were neither tracks nor scents for Nemel to detect, despite being in the room for an hour. The abilities that Dame Verilyn had mentioned, however, were something that she had come to be aware of after working with the Imperial Army. "But you're a bard," she said. "Isn't tracking something that rangers do?" "It is something that hunters do," Dame Verilyn told her. "I've mentioned this before, yes? Frost dragons are hunters, the greatest hunters in all of dragonkind. These minion thieves will not escape me." Dame Verilyn led Nemel out the rear entrance of the Merchant Inn, through the yard and into the back streets of Farsound. Upon reaching the wooden palisade protecting the town, she was scooped up into her liege's arms. Nemel wrapped her arms around Dame Verulin's neck just before they hopped over the wall. She wasn't set down again until they made their way out of the clearing around the settlement and into the forest nearby. "I'm pretty sure I can't keep up with you," Nemel said. "That's all right," Dame Verulin replied, "we'll be flying." "Oh, Nemel reached into the satchel slung over her shoulder, pulling out her flight cap. She fastened it on and adjusted her goggles. Despite what had happened, a thrill of anticipation ran through her. She had only ever seen Dame Verulin as a frost dragon from a distance. The number of people who had seen a dragon from up close was probably a handful at best, and she doubted that anyone in the Empire had ever ridden one. When she looked up from her preparations, she found that Dame Verulin had laid some sort of blanket on the forest floor. "What's that? Oh, did you need help putting that on?" "Putting what on?" Dame Verulin asked. "The blanket? It's for your back, right?" "No," her liege frowned at her, "it's for you." Nemel returned the frown. "Me?" "Yes, you." Dame Verulin nodded and made circular motions with a finger. "Lie down and I'll roll you up in it. The journey will be more comfortable that way." "Oh, did you need to relieve yourself before you go? Out here, though, it's safer." "Why is it safer to go to the bathroom outside?" "In both Elanal and Far Sound, I found a man inside our inn's latrine with a spear. I thought it bizarre, but maybe it's just something that commonly happens in this part of the Empire." "What?" Someone was definitely trying to kill Dame Verulin, though Nemel couldn't imagine why. She also couldn't imagine anyone succeeding. "I'll be fine," Nemel said. "Also, I have a magic item that bestows an Endure Elements effect, so you don't have to worry about me needing a blanket." "Are you sure?" Dame Verulin didn't seem convinced, but she put away the blanket. Nemel gaped as the beautiful human bard returned to her draconic form. Then she gasped as the frost dragon snatched her in a forklaw and flew off. The treetops swiftly receded below as Nemel dangled limply like a fish from a Nagel's talons. It took several moments for her to figure out what was going on. Wait, why am I going like this? How else would you go? On your back?" Dame Verulin scoffed. "Don't be silly. This is obviously the correct way." But what about Lady Zaradnik?" "Lady Zaradnik is Lady Zaradnik." "Huh? Whoa!" Nemel's stomach lurched as she was tossed from one claw to the other. She squirmed as Dame Verulin adjusted her grip. You're a lot squishier than Zusharu. How hard can I squeeze you?" "Please don't squeeze me. Various things are already threatening to come out." She was used to flying, but not flying like this. And certainly not this fast. Her ears kept popping as they ascended 1,000 meters at what felt like 6 times the rate of a hippogriff. With only a slice of the moon peeking out between the clouds, the lands below were an insubstantial void. Nemel turned her gaze to the snowy peaks silhouetted against the night sky, trying to figure out how far they had already flown. "How long until we're there?" she asked. "I don't know," Dame Verulin answered. "Why you don't know?" "I'll know when I see it," Dame Verulin said. "Unless, how well drawn do you think that map was?" "It was basically a sketch with some landmarks. You should be able to see them from up here, right?" An uncomfortable silence passed between them. "About that, frost dragons don't learn or think the same way as humans do." "But you seem perfectly intelligent to me," Nemel said. "What?" Dame Verulin's claws twitched. "Why does it have to go in that direction? Just because people are different doesn't mean they have to be stupid." "Sorry." "Anyway," the frost dragon continued, "we have a perfect memory for our experiences and we learn the fastest through them. Maybe it gets better as our accrued experiences build up, but it's very difficult for frost dragons to learn by reading and other abstract means because how we associate things is through our direct experiences." "Huh? So that's what you meant back then, but how do you understand unfamiliar things that people say without experiencing them?" "I don't. Until I do." "So as your experiences grow, you understand more about what you remember?" "That's right." "How does that relate to the question about the map?" "The Sorceress Kingdom's maps are very accurate. I can look at a map and look down from the sky and match things like that. If it's just a map made out of abstract images, it won't mean much to me." Nemel pulled out the map. It was clearly a rough sketch that used symbols to indicate the landmarks around the meeting place. But this is a map made out of abstract images. There are icons and everything. Obviously not to me. Does that mean you've been looking for trees like the ones on this thing? And a stream that looks like a squiggle? That was a stream? I was just looking for a squiggle. Where does one find a squiggle like this? I don't know. I haven't been everywhere yet. Maybe there's a place somewhere in the world that has a squiggle on the ground just like that. A goddess. Lady Zaradnik must be some sort of goddess if she was able to teach Elishnish about human customs, laws and territorial management. So what were you imagining when you were talking to me about potato farms and such? Something like the villages in Lady Zaradnik's domain? With potatoes. And what do potato plants look like? Something like grapes, maybe? Or oats. I've never seen potato plants before. Nemel scowled down at the map. They were definitely going to get lost. She was going to be dangled all the way to the Beastman Confederation at this rate. Oh, I think I see them. 1, 2, 3, 8 sacks? Does that sound right? What was the point of this map? They didn't take the wagon drivers, Nemel said, and I doubt we'd find people carrying 8 sacks out in the middle of nowhere. How many are there? 24, Dame Verilyn replied. They're moving pretty fast for humans. What do they look like? They're dressed in black from head to toe. Fendros described the kidnappers along those lines, so there was little chance that they had found the wrong people. How far are we from Farsound? About 30 kilometers. They've been following this river up into the mountains. If they keep going like this, they'll reach the tree line in 2 hours. The tree line in the northeast of the Empire was a bit over 2,000 meters. To get from sea level to the tree line in about 4 hours while carrying people, they must all be very strong. Could Dame Verilyn fight that many strong people at once? What are we going to do? Nemel asked. Where does the map say we're supposed to meet? Further up this river, between the 2 big ranges southeast of Farsound. There should be a set of falls. They've probably set up some sort of trap for you. Me? Yes, you. That's what the note said, right? If you want to see your husband ever again, go to the place marked on the map. Oh. Well, that's awkward. They continued flying southeast up the mountain valley. Rather than getting closer to the ground, she rose above the surrounding peaks. The frost dragon banked into a huge circle that went from one range to the other. Nemel was beginning to regret not opting for the blanket. Dame Verilyn probably felt that she was handling her gently, but it still grew uncomfortable. Why are we flying around like this, Dame Verilyn? I've never been here before, so I'm familiarizing myself with the place. And you'll just remember it forever? I'll remember the experience of familiarizing myself with this place indefinitely. Nemel shook her head as she continued to dangle an absurd distance over the ground. Would she be able to do her job as a seneschal properly if this was what Dame Verilyn was like? If she mentioned something dependent on something else like taxes, would it bring a specific number of gold coins to mind? A single page on a financial report might take weeks to explain. Please continue to serve Dame Verilyn well. She is exceptional in many ways, but she will be depending on you for others. A strange warmth rose within her as Lady Zaradnik's words echoed in her memory. Nemel wasn't aware that she had been entrusted with so much. Someone else might have been tempted to deceive and confuse Dame Verilyn in the same position, but she most certainly would not. Compared to Imperial society, where one wouldn't be surprised at any dirty dealings undertaken for the sake of gaining advantages, her new home would be vastly different. An impossible place that Nemel thought could only exist in fantastic stories like Dreams of Red. Uh-oh. Nemel scrubbed her cheek. What's wrong? Someone's coming. I can't see anything this high up. Not down there, Dame Verilyn said. Up here. Another dragon is coming this way. I guess a dangling human going in circles 6,000 meters in the air is quite conspicuous. Was that what she looked like? Dame Verilyn did mention something like that in Ingelfort. Is the dragon with them? Maybe that's why they thought they could take you on. That's highly doubtful, Dame Verilyn snorted. A bronze dragon would have nothing to do with kidnappers. They're all about order, justice, righteousness and that sort of thing. Something like paladins? No charity, though, that would be absurd. So we're not about to be attacked? Wait, have you met a bronze dragon before? No. But if frost dragons learn through their experiences, then how would you know anything about dragons that you've never met before?
I just know, Dame Verilyn said.
We've gone over this before, yes? Unlike humans, dragons are born understanding various things. As for your other question, that would depend. While they readily involve themselves in conflicts that they believe to be just, they tend to avoid killing or even injuring others unless they believe that it is similarly justified. Speaking of which, try to stay neutral in any sort of conversation he brings up.
Why?
You make it sound as if bronze dragons are good dragons. I'll explain later. He's getting close enough to overhear us. Oh, if he's more aggressive than expected, I'm going to have to throw you away. Make sure you cast a fly spell if that happens. Nemel adjusted her goggles, trying to spot the approaching bronze dragon. His voice boomed out into the night long before she could see him. Stranger, declare yourself. Could you keep it down, please? Dame Verilyn hissed back.
What?
Shh. Dame Verilyn slowed to a lazy glide and the bronze dragon came alongside her. Metallic scales glinted over a draconic form nearly twice as long as the frost dragon's. Despite the sheer difference in size between them, Dame Verilyn seemed unconcerned. A pair of glowing amber eyes regarded them from a beaked head with ribbed and fluted crests that swept back like the wings of a paladin's helmet.
Good morning. I'm Dame Verilyn.
Dame?
The other dragon's voice was incredulous. As in a knight?
That is the title I currently hold,
Dame Verilyn replied.
Is there a problem with a dragon being a knight?
No,
but a white dragon being a knight is a bit out there.
Is that so? There are plenty of stories about white knights.
That's not how it works. So this is what a conversation between legendary beings is like.
It wasn't legendary at all.
Even being dangled in the air all night was more legendary than this. Nemel would have some words with the next bard she heard telling a tale where legendary figures enacted epic exchanges.
I don't believe I got your name, sir.
Ireniciphilia, the bronze dragon replied.
No sir.
He seemed to have become meek. Was it because Dame Verilyn had a title and he didn't? She did make it seem like bronze dragons were like knights in shining armor or scales or whatever.
Well met, Ireniciphilia, Dame Verilyn said. I won't be here for long. I'm just here to deal with some kidnappers and then I'll be gone.
Kidnappers? The bronze dragon's gaze went down to Nemel. I hope you realize how strange that sounds when you have a human in your clutches. This is one of my minions. Say hello, Miss Gran. Nemel was suddenly thrust out in front of the bronze dragon's beaked snout. He went cross-eyed before falling back a few meters. Hello, Nemel said. Is what she says true? Are you one of Dame Verilyn's minions? Nemel did her best not to squirm before the maw of huge teeth.
I'm her vassal, she nodded. The seneschal of her territory, to be precise.
My aides and some merchants we're traveling with were kidnapped, so Dame Verilyn came to rescue them. I still have no idea why they would do that, Dame Verilyn muttered as she tucked Nemel away again. Ireniciphilia tilted his head to look below. A low growl issued from his throat. Nothing would surprise me when it comes to their despicable acts, he said. Those are agents from Ijania. I take it that you're familiar with them. They're an unscrupulous assassin organization that have based themselves between the northeastern border of the Empire and the city-state alliance to the east. The complex that you see below the glaciers over there is their headquarters. They're commonly hired in this region for espionage, abductions, murder and all sorts of other foulness. I'm surprised that a bronze would suffer their presence at all. The other dragon snarled viciously at the landscape below. Arcs of yellow-green electricity coursed over his maw. Oh, rest assured, I'll get them. They are aware of my domain over the area to the east, so I'm sure they've made preparations to fend off any premature attempts at their destruction. But another century and their doom at my hand is assured. In that case, do you mind if I remove them? That they've abducted your minions is reason enough, but Ijania is not an organization that an adult white can destroy. You heard me just now, yes? An adult bronze like myself needs another century to overcome them. Though, if we combine our might, these villains will surely. Thanks, Dame Verilyn said, but no thanks. Nemel squeaked as the frost dragon tucked her wings and dove from the night sky.